Hello and welcome to 3 bone-chillingly true War Thunder scary stories from Reddit, where I will share 3 War Thunder stories from Reddit that are true. These bone-chilling stories from Reddit are made scarier by the fact they all in fact really happened. Enjoy. Story 1. War Thunder was my second favorite thing ever, right after Analog Horror. I constantly binged Backrooms found footage and creepy VHS videos on my second monitor while playing War Thunder. I was never amazing at the game, but I managed. One evening, I was doing my usual. I had a Minecraft Dweller video pulled up while playing War Thunder. My parents were out on a date that night, and I had the house to myself. There was a storm outside, and the rain added to the atmosphere of my video. I glanced over at the video. The guy playing was obviously about to be jump scared. I watched for a moment, and surely enough, he was. I jumped as well, but giggled. This mod wasn't as good as the other ones I'd seen. I continued with my War Thunder game, barely losing and advanced to the Rhine mission. The reward screen showed up, and the power flickered due to the storm. I waited to be sent back to the hangar, but I never was. Everyone remained in their places, with no sound except the ambience and my engine. I drove around, shooting and killing everyone I could see. My kill count went up on the banner at the bottom each time, and I took my total from 9 to 21. I tried capturing the points, and to my surprise, it worked. I got 3 more capture points, and continued to drive around. I was just about to return to the hangar when I heard a sound. Another engine. I looked at the map, and none of the ghosts of my teammates were near me. I turned my engine off and listened. Something small was moving around near me, and I could hear it inching closer. Eventually, I heard it rip around a corner behind me and stop. There was nothing there. No tire marks, no tank, but the distinct sound of an engine purring behind me was there. Then, a message appeared in chat with no sender. "You shouldn't be here." My screen faded out and then showed a loading screen before I was put back in the hangar. My extra kills and captures were shown in the results, but my rewards were all 0. Nothing from that game had counted at all. I checked the battles tab, seeing if it was a bug, and it showed 0 there as well. There was no replay button. I checked my replays tab, and there was nothing there either. No record of this game. Thunder shook my house, and my room went dark. A few seconds later, my PC came back to life, but with only my main monitor. I said screw it and queued another game. My video wasn't that good anyway. I spawned into a mission, Domination Poland. I hit to battle and spawned my tank, and no one was around me. To be expected, I thought. No one likes to play this side of the map. Then I actually looked at the map. No one else had spawned. I checked tab. I was the only player in the lobby. No players nor bots to fill their positions. I drove around to each cap one by one, and the enemy's tickets started to bleed. I ended up north by A and started to drive into the enemy spawn. As I was doing donuts, something drove onto the B point and started to decap it. I checked tab. There was still no one besides me in the game. As I began driving to the B point, the C point was uncaptured. How did they get across the water so fast? I double checked and I was still the only person in the game. Whoever or whatever was on C continued to take it, turning it red. I finally arrived to the B point and began to retake it. A warning flashed across my screen and my crew shouted, "Artillery fire! In this sector!" Artillery began to rain down on me, every orange marker hitting my tank no matter where I moved. Then it really began to rain in. The first strike tore through the roof of my tank, and every subsequent shot hit the same spot. I stared wide-eyed at my screen. It said destroyed by, and then a blank space. The kill cam showed the C point with no one on it. but I could hear their engine and see the camera move as they drove over the water towards B. I spawned in another tank, and B was taken right as I exited spawn. As I drove, I heard the engine noise again, and it cut off somewhere in front of me. I cautiously drove forward, searching for the source, and then I hit something. My tank continued forward, but I was obviously pushing something. I looked, and there was nothing there. I stopped my tank, reversed, and activated my tow hook to see if I could attach to anything. For a split second, I thought I saw an option to hook, but something else hooked me first. A tow line came down from above my tank, attached to nothing somewhere above me. Suddenly, I was being lifted into the air, my tank swinging on the line. I was slowly tugged up until I reached the clouds, and then I was released. As I fell back towards the ground, everything contorted into a buggy triangular mess. I slammed into the dirt, and my computer went black. My parents came home soon after, and the power wasn't back until the next morning. I checked my computer, and War Thunder was no longer installed. None of the recordings or pictures I took throughout my time in the game were there either. I went to Gaijin's site to re-download it, and the download button was grayed out. I refreshed a few times until it finally worked and reinstalled the game. Once it had all re-downloaded, I opened the game and saw a message in my inbox. Again, from a blank username, it read, "Every war has its thunder." Story 2. My grandfather was an Air Force pilot, and after he retired, he moved out into the middle of nowhere to get away from it all. Whenever I visited him, he would always tell me stories of his missions, and bought me model aircraft as gifts. One birthday, I finally received an RC plane, and I was infatuated with it. We took it out into the field behind his house, and he showed me how to fly it. I crashed a few times, but the plane was sturdy enough, and we kept going until the battery died. We took it back inside to charge, and by the time it finished, the sun had begun to set. My grandpa had always warned me to never go outside after dark, but I didn't care. I had waited so long for the battery to charge, and I deserved to fly my plane again. I snuck out while Grandpa was busy with something and began flying again. Eventually it got darker, but I kept playing with my toy. A sudden howl from the woods startled me, and I dropped the controller. The plane flew off and crashed on the edge of the woodline. The woods scared me, but I made my way over to retrieve my toy. I bent down to pick it up and heard a snarl from in front of me. I froze. I heard a voice, something not quite human, say, "Are you having trouble with your plane? It's quite easy, actually. Let me show you." Just then my grandpa burst out of the door and came running with his gun in hand while yelling my name. I ran back past him as he started firing into the woods. Once he had emptied his gun, he ran back inside, locking the door and bolting it. He brought me upstairs to his room and locked the bedroom door. I got a very long and stern talk about not listening about being out after dark, and that I could have gotten hurt, or worse. I asked what was out there and he didn't answer, staring blankly ahead. "Grandpa?" I asked, and he snapped out of it. "Nothing you need to worry about. Get to bed." He sat at the foot of the bed for the rest of the night, and I eventually dozed off. My parents came to pick me up the next day, and I went home. Many years went by, and I grew up, and my grandfather passed away. In his will, he left me his house and all of his belongings. Not wanting to lose the property, and hoping to relive some of our memories, I moved into his old house. My new home was still in the middle of nowhere, with not much to do or anyone to meet, so I spent a lot more time online. The connection was quite poor, but it was enough to share photos of my grandpa's stuff on forums and play the occasional game. One day while reading the replies, someone mentioned a game I hadn't heard of, War Thunder. They said I could fly the same plane he flew and fly on similar missions dropping bombs on enemies. I installed the game and was hooked. I played most days after work, almost always in the air modes. I got more and more excited the closer and closer I got to unlocking the plane my grandpa flew, until eventually I got it. I played a few aerialistic games that did my best to ground strike. Typically I would be able to get a few kills, but I was always impeded by enemy aircraft. I felt disappointed. All this time for this, a few bot kills per game? This wasn't exciting at all. Flying in a line to hit space and go home or dogfight without my full weapons loadout? There had to be something more. And there was. I remembered ground allowed you to bring in a plane as CAS, provided you got enough spawn points. I immediately began my way down the ground tree. I already had up to rank 2 from the little ground RB I had played before, but this time I was taking aircraft to assist in my grind. I was admittedly pretty trash at ground, so it took me a few games before I was able to get enough spawn points for a plane. As soon as I had spawned, I heard a noise outside. It sounded like a dog had jumped up onto the porch. I set my plane to fly straight ahead and took my headset off to listen. There was something on my porch for sure. I could hear the nails hitting against the boards. Coyotes weren't uncommon in the area. Every now and then I saw their tracks in my yard. But for some reason, that encounter from when I was little replayed in my mind. I wasn't sure whether to hope it left me alone or try to fend it off with my grandpa's gun. Just then, bullets tore through my plane, the tail separating from the fuselage in a fireball. I heard whatever was outside leap off my porch and run back into the woods. I wasn't sure what to make of all of this, so I turned my computer off and went to bed. In the following days I tried my luck again, getting better and better with the tanks. I was able to spawn a plane every few games, but I was often caught off guard by the constant anti-air. A lot of the time I also crashed due to a combination of Gaijin servers and my poor internet. It didn't take long for me to learn to avoid the AA, but I still found getting my bombs off difficult at times. All the while, the howls from the woods went from being a very rare occurrence to being an almost nightly happening. I brushed it off as maybe a new pack had expanded its territory and kept on with my grind. After a few weeks, I made it to the rank 6 range and could finally take in planes with bomb computers, higher bomb loads, and guided rockets. One particular game I was doing my routine casts and my internet dropped, causing me to nosedive into my target, killing us both. I returned to the hangar and saw I had received a message. "No skill cast player, go back to air," it read. I began to type a reply, but then, bang! Something crashed into my front door. It was heavy enough that a few display items by the door had fallen over. I froze. Again, something hit the door. It hit the door over and over, causing antiques to fall and break. I wanted to move, to do something, but I was frozen in fear. After a dozen or so strikes, the banging stopped. I heaved a sigh of relief, but then a new noise replaced the slams. Something was being carved into my door. I grabbed my phone and called the police. The town was a good distance away, and it would take at least 20 minutes for someone to arrive. All I could do was wait and listen, while whatever was outside carved up my door. I finally heard sirens in the distance, and heard the thing on my porch run off into the woods, again the nails clacking on the porch. I opened the door for the officers and looked at the damage. The entire bottom of the door was scratched beyond repair, with tufts of brownish hair stuck in the splinters. The officers looked it over with me and advised me there wasn't much they could do. They recommended that I just keep a gun with me at all times and went on their way. As they pulled out, I looked at the damage again and was able to make out a short message. No CAS. I wasn't sure what to think. Surely I was seeing things that weren't there. I closed and locked the door and went back upstairs. I again loaded my grandpa's gun, locked the bedroom door, and tried to get some sleep. Try as I might, I just couldn't fall asleep. Something kept bugging me, gnawing at the back of my mind. That wolf. It had spoken to me all those years ago. Could it have left that message at my door? Surely I was crazy or misremembering. Sure, there could have been a wolf, but animals can't talk, right? The next morning I went out to the shed to look for anything I could use to temporarily cover my door. I scrounged around and found a sheet of metal of a good size, and took it back to the porch. It was a cool, foggy morning, just the weather I like, and I started screwing the sheet over the scratches. Once I finished, I got up and turned around to return the tools to the shed, and on the edge of the fog, I saw it. There was that brown wolf standing there, and I mean standing on its hind legs. It was wearing some sort of green jacket and had a gray muzzle with what looked like a fruity haircut. We stared at one another for a moment before it got on all fours and ran back into the woods. I didn't bother returning the tools. I simply went inside and sat with my gun. That thing looked exactly like what I saw as a kid. A few weeks passed, and I had continued my grind. I had finally unlocked tanks high enough to use my plane with. I was just about to start my first game when I got a call from the fire chief. I was a volunteer fireman, and there was a forest fire that had just started that evening on the other side of town. I was told to report to the station by 10. It was already 8 o'clock, and the drive was an hour. I got ready very quickly, and I figured since I had a bit of time to spare, I'd squeeze one game in before heading out. I spawned into Fields of Poland, and quickly racked up 3 kills, an assist, and a capture before dying. It was more than enough for a plane, and early enough in the game that no anti-air should have spawned. I took my plane up to high altitude and dove down, releasing all of my guided munitions in one go. 4 kills. I circled back around, dumping some bombs on a capture point, racking up 2 more kills. I then turned back for base to rearm my plane. I was having a blast, but my team wasn't doing so hot. I noticed one player racking up an unusual amount of kills, causing many of my teammates to leave the game. I took off and made it my goal to kill him. I loitered over the battlefield, trying to scour where he was. My RWR went off. A Roland was on its way to meet me. I flared and took evasive action. The missile self-detonated just below me. I began searching for the anti-air when my teammate marked a spot on the map. It was that player. Ignoring the threat, I turned and launched my whole payload at the player to ensure at least one would hit. As my ordnance left the rack, another missile pierced my plane, sending me into a fiery spin. I watched as my payload made its way to the target. I was about to have 7 kills with this plane, which was not bad at all. I watched as his tank exploded and waited for the satisfying kill sound. Instead, I heard the loudest howl I'd heard yet from outside. It sounded almost human, yet still animal-like, and as if it was in pain. I chuckled. That wolf had finally met the end it deserved, probably attacked by a bear. That player never respawned, and we quickly won the game. I grabbed my stuff and headed out to my truck. It was cold outside, and unusually quiet. I fumbled around with my keys and dropped them into the gravel. I got down to try to find them when I heard what sounded like gravel crunching down at the end of my driveway. I froze, listening. Maybe a pine cone fell onto the drive, or I made the sound myself looking for my keys. I waited for around a minute, and I heard it again. Then again and again. It was walking towards me. I began to panic and frantically looked for my keys, finally finding them and shoving them into the lock. I swung the door open and looked up. He was only 20 feet away. We stared at each other for what felt like forever before it finally spoke to me with the same voice I heard all those years ago. It had the same high-pitched tone, which was more annoying than scary to listen to. I told you, planes are quite easy to fly. You should have stopped when I warned you. What did a wolfman know about aviation, or about my game at all? What do you want? I shakingly asked, looking at his jacket. There was something in his pockets. Stop playing Cass, he growled. What's in your pockets? Are you going to kill me? The wolfman chuckled at me. It's just art. I enjoy the style. And no, I won't kill you. He paused, his ears perking up. In the distance I could hear a plane rapidly approaching. He obviously heard it too. Before we knew it, the plane was over us and the wolfman fell to the ground, papers falling from his pockets. It was a firefighting plane, and the engines were deafening. The wolfman was terrified, dashing back into the woods trying to hide from the aircraft. I picked up one of the papers he had dropped, curious about his art. It was a picture of him kissing another wolfman. The following papers were the same, but more graphic. I'll spare you the details. I got into my truck and took off towards the fire station. My hands were shaking. I was confused and scared by what had happened, but in a way relieved. The creature that had been terrifying me was retarded and only wanted to complain. I was safe. Story 3. So, to add some context, I, 28 male, have been playing War Thunder for close to 6 years. I work from home by means of my YouTube channel, which is criminally underappreciated. Even my wife, 26 female, isn't supportive, but once I make it, she won't need to work 2 jobs anymore. My wife also has a boyfriend, 25 male, which will be important for later. This all started on a day that was just like any other. I woke up at 3 p.m. and immediately hopped on the computer. I checked my YouTube channel. No new subscribers. I went to Reddit to get the latest War Thunder updates. A picture of a tank asking for opinions, someone's new kill count, a funny meme about how many leopards are in the game, all typical stuff. All updated. I decided to make a post of my own. A Velociraptor meme that said, "If War Thunder isn't fun, why do I play it so much?" I kept scrolling. A face made of decals, another classified documents leak, and then a post about getting God mode using an M22 at top tier. It was disgusting. I downvoted, reported, and left a comment. People like this are what ruin War Thunder. It isn't cool or funny, and you deserve to be TK'd. I closed Reddit and opened War Thunder. My daily bonus rolled and landed in between 2 1 million silver lion crates. Yep, this game sucks. I checked my squadron research. Another few thousand was added towards my Magok. Squadron research had really picked up since joining the Finboy squadron. Anyway, I decided to queue a match in my F5C. This was where everything went downhill. I got into the game, and everything seemed fine until I saw it. A Stuka. This imbecile really brought a low tier to 10-7 just to troll? This wasn't going to slide. I typed in chat while I waited for the stupid chud to take off. Wow, another troll reported to Gaijin. Enjoy the ban, bud. I put my plane into full afterburner and sped off the runway, and lined up just behind him. I pulled the trigger, and a few seconds later, he was gone. "I'm just trying to have fun, relax," he said in chat. Heh, yeah right. No one has fun on War Thunder. Suffering is required. I retorted back, "Yeah right, go back to low tier. I'm reporting you and your stupid squadron." He was silent after, and I went on to have my most successful game yet. 3 AI ground target kills, and I even finished off a base before dying to a MiG-21. Typical Russian bias, my chaff didn't even stop his R60. I played a few more games, and then my wife finally came home with dinner. I took the food and went back to my computer to continue grinding. She walked in a few moments later. "What?" I said. "Can't you see I'm busy?" "Charlie's coming over in a bit. I hope you don't mind," she replied. Of course he was. All she cared about was work and her new boyfriend. She never paid me or my game any attention. "Whatever," I told her. She came back a few minutes later with Charlie. "Hey man, how's your game going? Me and Susan were gonna go out for a bit." "How's my game going?" It's called War Thunder, and it's not going well," I chuckled back. "Some loser brought his prop to top tier, and it's ruining everything." What he said next hit me like a ton of bricks. Just let it be, man. Just let it be. The troll earlier was playing a JU-87B.